Constantly attracted to her unique use of pattern, text, repetition, and color. I find her work very inviting and want to delve deeper into its meaning as I sit with it for a while, hoping to find out some more things about it today. A little bit about Amy. Amy was born on Loring Air Force Base in Maine and has lived in Baltimore, Maryland for the last 15 years. She received her BFA from Pennsylvania College of Art and Design and an MFA from Towson University in Maryland. She was awarded a 2-year Hamiltonian Artist Fellowship in Washington, D.C., and is also a 2-time recipient of the Maryland State Arts Council Individual Artist Award for works on paper, and a 2023 Joan Mitchell Fellowship nominee. In addition to her own studio practice, Amy has a committed relationship to visual art education, running the web-based studio visit series Inertia, and is currently visiting faculty at Dickinson College. Let's welcome Amy.
Okay, let me get my volume back down so I'm not shouting at you. Okay, Amy, take it away.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I feel really grateful. And also, I just want to say, like, how cool and wonderful this is, this thing that you've all built and that you care for. It's really inspiring to see. So thank you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Okay, am I here? Screen share?
Yes. Yes,
Lovely. Okay, thank you. I'm having flashbacks to teaching college online, which was I don't know, a little stressful. Okay. So I'm gonna go into the full screen mode here. But I think, remind me, we are doing questions as we go, correct?
Yes.
They relate, right?
Right.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So I am Amy Boone McCreesh, and as Lorraine said, I am from Baltimore, Maryland. I really love it here. I came here for graduate school, and I teach college. I'm really interested in this might sound silly to you, but sometimes in academia, there's kind of like collage can be a pejorative, and even in museum settings, right? And I feel like it's one of the most humble and genuine ways of working, and I really think that it needs to be elevated. And I think that the tides are kind of shifting a little bit in things like museum collections and contemporary art, popular culture. So I'm interested in that and kind of the destigmatization of what collage really means for art making. I think it's a really important process that I use with my students and obviously with my own work. And I really like its collection to kind of like women's work or mending or problem solving or kind of figuring out a puzzle in a way. So what you're looking at here, these 3 images are images from my studio, and I'm not really precious when it comes to materials. I'll use anything and everything. I look at a lot of textiles. I look at a lot of pattern and decoration. I'm really interested in abstract painting. Ooh. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start by taking you back to my time when I was finishing graduate school. I was really interested in working abstractly, but if any of you work abstractly, maybe you have struggled with kind of where to start and where to end. Because if you're not working representationally, it's hard to kind of understand what your goals are. You know, if you're painting a landscape, you kind of have a sense that that landscape is done when the landscape looks like the thing. But when you're working abstractly, you have to kind of set your own rules and parameters. And so something I was doing at the time, and I still do, is I actually also create sculpture and installation art. And I started to use the sculptures as a jumping off point for my collages. So the image on the left is obviously sculpture, and then the image on the right is, if you saw it independent from the sculpture or alone, you know, maybe it reads abstractly, but it's actually almost a still life or informed by that sculpture. So this was a way for me to have kind of a guide as I was working, and then kind of deviate from there or make creative decisions from there. So this is another piece shortly after graduate school. As mentioned in the introduction, I did a fellowship with a gallery in Washington, D.C. called Hamiltonian, and they provide kind of career guidance and exhibitions and things like that. So another thing that I do with my collages is, and maybe some of you have worked with this website, it's called Spoonflower. So I actually do high resolution scans of some of my works on paper, and then I turn them into patterns or repeats, and I have them printed on either new papers or fabrics or vinyl or wallpaper. And this is a way for me to bring my collage aesthetic and visual vocabulary back into my sculptural works and installation. Okay, so I broke this talk down into a few categories. I recently was a visitor at Tufts in Boston at the School Museum of Fine Arts. And I was speaking with graduate students, and I've been trying to think about ways to kind of categorize different bodies of work and really take a step back and think about what were the guiding principles of those bodies of work, or what was kind of informing them, and then thinking also about transition pieces. Maybe some of you have a piece that comes to be in your studio and you don't really know how it fits into the rest of your body of work, or maybe it's a time when your work is changing. So having these categories is a way that I can kind of step back and make sense of my trajectory. And also I think it's an easier way to absorb the work visually because it is quite abstract. So the image that you're looking at here is from my studio wall. And I'm really interested in different types of, I'll just call them views. So like a view out your window, a view of your home, a view of an interior. And I'm really interested in how that relates to class and visual taste. So some of these images might look very luxurious, some might look kind of kitschy, and obviously I'm interested in maximalism. So how does maximalism or a maximal design aesthetic kind of parlay its way into those conversations? So this is an installation that I did at a university, and what you're looking at here, I call this a view. So it's kind of actually a physical expansion on this idea. But the pieces hanging down, I'll just call them garlands. You can kind of see them here if you can see my mouse. These are all cut up pieces of paper that I then punched a hole in and kind of strung them. So I was thinking about when you book a hotel room or when you rent an apartment, you're always paying a premium for a view of the ocean, a view of a park. But those things are actually free. So it's interesting to me how this has become kind of commodified. And this, I think of this as an expansion on collage, like a three-dimensional representation of collage. And the ottomans that you're seeing here, this kind of the three seats, these are actually upholstered with fabric that I had printed on that website that I mentioned, Spoonflower. And they are scans of collages from my studio. So I actually just put pieces of paper and scraps from my studio on my scanner bed, and I scan it and I kind of rearrange it, and then maybe I'll play with it in Photoshop a little bit. But then I also have them printed onto fabric. So this leads us to closer to present day, so 2021. This piece is called The Neighbors Are Watching, and this body of work, this view body of work, is probably the most representational that I've made in my art career. And there are a couple different layers here. Some of them are fabric, some are paper, some are things like beads and found objects. But I am always working actually on both sides of the paper. And there are some little moments here, hopefully you can see my mouse, but there are moments where there are cuts, and then those cuts are kind of peeled back. And that is revealing the color on the back side of the paper. So here on the bottom strips, you can actually see a cut. That piece was folded over to reveal another color or another pattern on the back. So this is a way for me also to keep my practice or my process kind of fresh, because if I cut the paper and fold it back, I don't always know what it will reveal. And it's an interesting kind of reactionary way for me to work so that I'm not entirely in control all of the time. I don't want to always be in control. And I like those kind of happy accidents to happen. So this piece was made in 2020. It's called As the World Burns. So obviously I was in my studio during the pandemic and really wondering what would become of us, and thinking about how I was in a really, I and the rest of us were in a really unique situation. As they mentioned in the introduction, I live in Baltimore City, so a lot of my daily view is pretty rich with like brick and stone and window bars. So window bars, I think, also kind of say a lot about class and hierarchy, especially in a city space, and they're a representation of safety or the need for safety. And so I started bringing window bars into my work. You can see it in a lot of my recent work, not only as a conceptual element to think about those ideas, but also as a formal element. Because they're black and they're so linear, I really love how it looks like they sit on the surface or they build kind of a depth or a space. Because I look at a lot of abstract painting, I'm always thinking about ways to kind of push or expand space, even though I'm working in a relatively flat plane. So this one, you can also see these little moments of paper that is cut and then folded over to reveal another color on the back side. And every section that you're seeing here, so a curtain section, a brick section, a curtain section, this kind of fire section, they are all separate sheets of paper that have been collaged together. So some of these might read as being relatively flat, but they're actually made up of maybe 6 or 7 separate pieces that are glued together and then even further collaged from there and kind of manipulated from there. This is another piece from that same body of work. So this one is getting a little more abstract. Is there a question? No. This piece is getting a little more abstract, but it's still kind of rooted in this idea of a view and also exterior versus interior spaces. I'm also really interested in animal prints and the way that animal prints can kind of speak to luxury or taste again, and they're also kind of a universal pattern that I keep returning to. Animal prints show up a lot in fashion, and sometimes they're even said to act as a neutral, which is very interesting to me. And I'm always thinking about ways that pattern and color can kind of work with or against each other. I'm interested in kind of dancing around this line of clashing or being in agreement. I teach a lot of color theory classes, so that's something kind of in the front of my mind. So this piece is another from this view series. So they're kind of, depending on how you take this piece in, I think there are multiple views or window viewing opportunities and different things that I think of as curtains. So the curtains read a lot like textiles, I hope, and they're kind of fringy. There are 3-dimensional collaged elements. There's fabric, mylar. Here's another one from that body of work. So at the bottom, you can even see how these floral elements are pretty 3-dimensional. They're all individually cut and painted separately, and then I kind of weave them into the existing piece. The window bar structure on top is separate. This kind of curtain drawback is separate, so I kind of make all of those elements, cut them out, bring them over, weave them in. So this might be maybe 3 or 4 layers deep, and I'm constantly kind of like cutting and revealing and even reshuffling the order in which they appear to see how that might change the interaction of color or pattern. So this is another from the series, views. So what you're looking at here is kind of an abstracted window with a window seat and cushions, window bars, and then something that feels like a windowsill or maybe even like a wood floor. I'm always thinking about ways to kind of pull in a viewer with identifiable moments, but then also to kind of let their creativity run a bit wild with moments that are more loose or unknown, kind of balancing the known versus the unknown. So there might be things that you look at in here and you can really identify, but there might also be moments that feel more about just color or shape. These are two pieces that I just showed you in an exhibition setting. So like I mentioned, I'm interested in architecture and interior spaces and the way that they make us feel possibly welcome or unwelcome, and then also maybe what that says about lifestyle, access, class, and taste. So I'm interested in doing these kind of faux painted elements, and then putting the collage pieces within those spaces. So it feels like a larger environment or an installation.
What size are those?
These in the frames?
Yes.
Yes, these are about 3 feet. Here's the dimensions for the one of them, 47 inches by 38 inches.
Aha, large.
Yeah, they're pretty large, and they're kind of monsters to get framed because they have about half an inch to an inch of depth sometimes. I don't always frame them, but sometimes for exhibition it's a request.
And then you choose the colors around, you know, the black and the yellow and these handles. You put handles on the like the drawers or something.
Yes, that's right. I chose the colors and then did all of the painted elements.
Wow.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, Amy, thank you so much. What kind of glue do you use to adhere all these different media that you're using? And since so many of them have different properties.
Yeah, that's a really great question and something I wrote down to say in the beginning.
Okay, thanks.
I actually use the PVA glue, which is sometimes known for bookbinding.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I use that, and I also use matte medium.
Mhm.
I use the Golden brand or the Liquitex brand.
Mhm.
But it's true. There are some unknowns with these materials that I'm using
Mhm.
in terms of longevity.
Right.
But the PVA glue seems to work pretty well. And then things that are more translucent or a
Mhm.
fabric, sometimes I'm using the matte medium to almost like encase it in that surface. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you.
And honestly, I went through a period where I tried really hard to not have any adhesive, which sounds kind of crazy, but I
Yeah.
was thinking about this longevity and looking at a lot of textiles. So
Mhm.
that is actually what sparked the painting on both sides of the paper,
Mhm.
because I was thinking about ways to weave the paper and
Mm.
attach it to itself so that it had this like inherent strength, you know, from its own yeah, without adhesive.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge for sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, thanks.
All right. This piece was recently at a small museum here in Maryland, and this piece I had framed in kind of a shadow box without any plexi because it is actually quite deep, but it's hard to see in the image. So this is another kind of semi-abstracted idea of a view. So looking out of a really large window, maybe you're not sure if you're indoors or outdoors. There's fabric in this. There are papers. Let me see if I can zoom a little. Maybe not. Okay. There are papers that I exclusively work with ink and watercolor. And then once they're dry, I kind of flatten them out again and cut them up and put them back into these larger pieces. I use Reeves BFK, which is a printmaking paper. And I started using it quite a long time ago because I felt that it was very resilient. It can really take a beating, and there's a pretty good tooth to it. So if any of you have ever done printmaking, you know that the tooth is essentially like how much can live on a surface before it doesn't take anymore. And what I also do now is I gesso both sides of the paper, either in white or clear gesso, because all of these layers become quite heavy actually, you know, just lifting up this piece even without the frame, it feels almost like a blanket or something. And so for longevity and also to prevent kind of warping and things like that, I started gessoing both sides pretty early in the process. And it was really important to me that everything that I was putting into my work was also made by me. So anytime that you're seeing fabric or something that is a found object, other than the fake flowers, which I sneak in here sometimes, everything else is made by me, and it's either been printed on fabric or you know, it's a monoprint or something like that. So I wanted to have more control over my visual vocabulary. I used to use some found imagery, but maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I decided that I wanted to kind of have a hand, a literal hand in everything that was going into the work.
Amy, excuse me, this is Patrice. I have a question about your color palette. So
Sure.
do you, since you make the papers, do you use papers already made to determine the palette of each piece, or are you creating the piece with a palette in mind and then have to make the papers first?
Yeah, that's a really great question. At this point, I'm a pretty intuitive worker, and I think because I teach so much color theory, to answer your question, I have a palette in mind, and I will often paint large pieces of paper using latex paint or something called flash, which is like a really opaque matte kind of paint. I think technically it's a vinyl paint, but I paint a lot of the papers ahead of time, and I should have included these massive boxes of scraps from my studio, and I have kind of a general color palette in mind, and then I'm working pretty intuitively, actually literally picking things up from my studio boxes and kind of sliding them under a layer and seeing how they feel. I know my cat. Sliding them under a layer or pulling them out. I use a lot of clips and painter's tape because I do a lot of temporary structures to see how I feel about the color. So I might slide a colored piece of paper into a cut area and then kind of step away or take a photo and then slide it out and slide another one in. So I like the non-committal aspects of collage actually. And when I do collage with my students, even in teaching color, you know, because you can move the pieces around and see how they look together, I think you can learn a lot about color without being so committed. Like if you're doing a painting, you know, that's a very committed way to think about color. So it's a little bit of planning, a little bit intuitive.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And I'm really interested in like I said, writing these lines of taste and kind of you know, what is tacky and how do we even define tacky and who gets to decide, you know, like who is deciding what is beautiful or aesthetically pleasing. And even in talking about color theory and teaching, in academia, there are a lot of understood principles around color, you know, which is fair objectively, but I think that people also have these kind of innate color palettes or these built-in color associations based on where they grew up, who they grew up with, experiences that they've had, and that's also really interesting to me. So I try to really skirt these lines like around complementary colors and colors that should not go together, you know, technically. So that's something that you'll see a lot in my work. So this is an installation image of 2 collage pieces that were at a gallery called David B. Smith in Denver, Colorado. And I call these 2 access to beauty, number 1 and number 2. And so what you're looking at here in my mind are these kind of floral pieces that are then partially obstructed by these window bars. So again, asking questions about what is beautiful, who gets to see the beautiful thing, and then again, expanding on this kind of garland idea or this environment idea. I have these kind of curtain shapes and then these acrylic rods as a way to kind of loosely reference, you know, an interior space or a view. And they are complementary colors, red and green. So here is a closer image of that piece, one of those pieces. So I think this one I'll use as an example. So the area where you see these what looks like bricks, these were all painted directly onto a large sheet of paper. And then everything else that you see that's not brick was kind of cut away, either negative or a positive brought in on top. So I would say that that brick layer is kind of like the home base for this, and then everything kind of pushes and pulls off of that. This piece is another really large piece, but less maximal or less kind of active in terms of pattern. But again, I think it references a window space or something that is potentially interior, exterior, thinking about blinds, bricks, awnings. This one is about three different layers. Okay. So another thing that is really informing my work is, like I've mentioned, this idea of maximalism and also luxury. What is luxury? Luxury objects and lifestyles. So I won't spend a ton of time on this, but I think it's important to my work and the way that I think about my work, in the way that homes have been decorated historically and what that says about class. And also more recently, I've been thinking a lot about fashion and these luxury bag charms. So maybe some of you have seen or experienced these. So the bag charms are something that kind of clip onto a bag, and it's a way to kind of buy into a designer or a luxury lifestyle at a lower price point. So I started creating some works that in my mind, felt like bags, and I started making these kind of collaged charms, and I would tie them onto the pieces. So I like the idea that the artworks would have kind of accessories that went along with them. So it was a little bit silly, a little bit informed by fashion, but maybe those are vehicles to talk about larger societal issues. I really strive for the works not to be kind of square or rectangle, and I like them living in a space that maybe references another shape or an object. I'm really interested in objects.
Someone has a question, and I'm not sure I understand it, so Kenny, I'll let you ask it about cast shadows of your layers.
Okay.
Yes, because you're not gluing everything solidly down, are you incorporating the cast shadows that naturally occur because of that?
Yes, definitely. And I think actually this image on the right here is a good example of that. So on the top of this brick piece, you can see this fringe that kind of is casting a shadow. And it's a really great question because I'm also thinking about ways to create real shadows and faux shadow. Because if I'm dealing in these ideas around abstract painting and shapes and the effects that shapes have on each other, of course, light and shadow is a part of that. And I like the illusionary component of like what is real, what is false, what is being presented to you as being true. That's something that's kind of interesting to me. So yes, that is a big part of my work. The two pieces that you're seeing here, I call them brick pillows. I feel like they kind of look like cute little pillows, but actually, if you think about the idea of a pillow being made from bricks, you know, it's something that is meant to be soft or comforting. And maybe in this context, they look playful, but they're actually, you know, referencing being made from something that is hard or meant to keep people in or out. This is a recent collage diptych that I did. These two pieces go together. They get shown to, actually they got framed together in one frame. And I call this Trash and Treasure. And outside of my studio, there's a really large park in the city. And for some reason, a lot of times when I'm at my studio, I find a lot of Mylar balloons right outside the park near my studio building. And so I started collecting them, and I started collecting plastic bags that I was finding. And some areas you can probably see, like this text over here, if you can see my mouse on the left, these are from plastic bags. This thing that looks like a little animal face, and this yellow area is from a Mylar balloon. So I started just cutting everything I was finding into these strips and trying to figure out a way to incorporate them into my work in a way that felt kind of like pattern and decoration, but was still talking about essentially trash items and kind of elevating those items. And I wanted them to feel maybe like doilies or textiles or something kind of the home. So this piece is a little older, but I think it falls into this category of maximalism and kind of luxuriating in these like the idea of opulence or having a lot of stuff. So this was one of the earliest pieces when I painted and drew on both sides of the paper, and I started to cut away. And this detail image, you can probably see that act of cutting away and then folding the paper to reveal another color and then kind of sliding another paper in behind it. This is also when I was playing with or trying to figure out ways to weave the paper together and create these kind of slices where I could slide strips back into the original piece. And this is another one from that time period. So a lot of kind of over the top visual energy, just like how I am interested in playing with color and hierarchies around color. I like to do the same thing with pattern and really push the boundaries of what is too much or what is over the top. And this is an example of maybe a more simple piece for me, but this is kind of a more formal examination of just that cutting away, folding, and revealing in just three or four colors. This is another piece that I think feels like an object, or for me, it feels like an object. So I was traveling a lot at the time, and I was thinking about these little souvenir change purses that you could buy, and just thinking about the idea of a purse to begin with. You know, it holds your money, it holds the answers to what you can afford. And so I use that as kind of a jumping off point for shape. And then this piece got really embellished with things like string and strips of paper and mylar. There's some text in here. And then also these really highly like dense pattern areas are actually fabric prints of former artworks. So kind of bringing other artworks back in and being like self-referential. This piece I think feels like a bag, and I wanted to create something that had a handle, so it actually maybe took the viewer to a world of like a bag or a function. There's fabric in this piece, beads, weaving. I'm really not precious in my work. Like I said earlier, I work relatively intuitively, and I try to just let that whatever is happening when I kind of enter this space of hyper creativity, I try to let it happen and kind of unleash that. And then as the piece progresses, maybe over a month's time, I go back and forth between these moments of like chaotic work, but then also taking a beat to kind of assess the piece and really think about what it needs formally or how I could dial in the composition a little better. Okay, and then my most recent work, again, kind of looping back to this idea of interiors and the domestic. So these pieces in the white frames here are all collage, but I wanted to show them in context of an installation because I do a lot of wall painting, custom flooring, found objects as a way to just expand my idea and what I'm interested in. And really immerse viewers in these spaces in a way that I think like an object on a wall can't quite do. And some of the pieces that you're seeing in the slideshow, you might recognize in this exhibition. So I'm referencing things like animal skin rugs or candlesticks or bags. So this piece is called Shop Till You Drop, and if you look closely in the center, the gray shape is kind of loosely modeled off of a bag, and then the two vertical shapes on either side are candlesticks. And so I spend a lot of time on, there's a luxury sales website called First Dibs. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but there's a lot of antique furniture and luxury items on this website. And it's kind of like an auction house. And I save a lot of the images, and I really try to research and think about ways historically that wealth or ideas around good living manifest like in a person's home. And so I was thinking about these really like over the top candelabras. And again, that fine line of when you think someone has good or bad taste and who is deciding. And ultimately, you know, what does that mean for a culture or society? So this piece is called Animal Skin Rug. So of course, in my research, thinking about kind of over the top interiors, I'm sure you all can imagine those animal skin rugs that you know, lay on the ground and there's kind of still a head attached, like a big bear or something. And it's kind of like the quintessential study or library item. And I thought it might be funny to kind of play with that idea. So the yellow shape that you see kind of central is my idea around like a sprawled out animal. And then I have this kind of hyper pattern and decoration and a ton of cutting and weaving and just really, really over the top. And this piece is quite large. So I wanted it to really feel like an object that had a presence, and I wanted it to reference an actual animal skin rug.
Amy?
Yes.
Oh, good. Question, because your works have so much energy and excitement and positivity in them. Excuse me, I would like to, I just want to understand your process. And do you get up and leave your work and walk away and have a multitude of works, you know, that you come back to and start?
Yeah.
How do you do this? Because there's just so much going on, and somehow it's so cohesive.
Thank you. Yeah, I often work on multiple pieces at once, and I try to have them at varying degrees of finished because yeah, energy kind of comes and goes, right? And some days you might be feeling like I need to do something kind of methodical, or I need to do something that requires less brain space, or I need to do something that requires more energy. So I try to be really aware of that and have pieces at different stages so that I can kind of channel my energy appropriately. But I also do about, I'll get a piece to maybe like 80 or 90% of what I think is done. And then I will let them sit for quite some time. Like if I have the luxury of time and there's no exhibition coming up, I'll leave them sit for maybe a month and just kind of see how I feel about them. And sometimes I do decide, oh, it's done. And sometimes I say, oh no, there's definitely something wrong with this. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I have a lot of things going at once. So this piece is called Status Symbols, and this is just kind of a big collection of all of the things that I imagine as being kind of symbols of status. So I've got my little animal skin rug up here, a chandelier, a big bowl of fruit. You know, I think anytime you go into someone's house and they have like a massive bowl of fruit, even if you think about you know, like Dutch still life paintings that you see in museums from the 17 and 1800s, when you see those still life paintings of flowers and rabbits and fresh produce, that was actually a way to show what those families had access to. I'm able to import fresh flowers. I'm able to have an excess of food. You know, just those things that are even still issues today. They really speak volumes about a person's lifestyle. So another thing I try to do in my work is make it feel really energetic and happy, but then have kind of a hidden meaning. This piece is in the shape of a pillow, and it says custom. So I've been playing with text more recently and thinking about ways to kind of sneak text into my work. This piece was shown at the Krieger Art Museum in Washington, D.C., and it was really incredible because a curator was able to choose a few artists in the area, and we showed our work in the context of, you know, master paintings. They, in this room is Cezanne and Renoir, and they actually took down a painting from this fireplace mantle and put my work up. And it is really interesting to think about, you know, being an artist in at the time, this was 2022, I believe, having my work hang in this setting and have it be collage and have like fake flowers and ribbons and all of these things that I was told academically were really not serious. To have it in this setting was really rewarding and wonderful. So I'm going to move a little faster here just so I don't go over time. So this piece feels to me maybe like an abstracted examination of curtains, bricks, a garden. My most recent obsession, samplers. So sewing samplers I've become really interested in. And also I'm thinking a lot again about interior spaces and how we live. And so I've adopted the size of a cloth napkin, which is 20 by 20. It's been an interesting challenge to work this small. This is actually very small for me, as you've seen. And so I'm taking these ideas around sewing samplers and I'm kind of forcing them into this rough 20 by 20 area and thinking about like, well, what are my moves as an artist, or what would I put on a sewing sampler? What do I have to offer? So there are kind of funny things in here, like my initials or the year or my age at the time. And they all are kind of living in this square format, which is bringing me back to this idea of framing, or like a framing device or a window. Still weaving paper, lots of layers, fabric.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a question. Will you share with us the type of substrate you use?
Yes. So you mean like the surface that I'm working on?
I think that's what they mean.
Yeah, it's all paper. Reeves BFK is kind of like the underlying thing, and the majority of it is also Reeves BFK, just lots of layers glued together, and then there's some fabric and things like that.
Do you ever use laser cutter for your shapes, or is it all hand cut? This is from Penny.
That is a great question. I actually started using laser cutting a couple years ago, but for a different context. And I still hand cut everything in my works on paper. I don't know why. There's like some mental block there that I feel like the evidence of the human hand or the genuineness will go away if I use the laser cutter. But I do use a laser cutter for these some other pieces that I'm making that are more sculptural. But there's something about the imperfection of the human hand that I'm really tied to, and I kind of can't let it go. But it's an interesting question. Maybe it will come in. So here are more pieces with maybe 3 or 4 different layers, plastic bags, fabric. So speaking of laser cutting, I started adding these little charms to a lot of my collages and the frames, and the key that you're seeing here is laser cut acrylic. So I've been adding keys to a lot of these collages because I've been thinking about visual symbols of access and ownership. And I think keys are a great example of that. You know, do you own a house? Do you own a car? Things like that. And also thinking back to this idea of like bag charms and fashion and accessory. It's kind of silly and funny, but also I think if viewers are willing to spend some more time with the work and the ideas around the work, you know, it can have a bigger meaning.
Amy, excuse me, a question about those charms. So technically, when you are asked for a size of your art piece, do you typically have to include the depth of whatever is hanging from the frame?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and something I'm dealing with more recently. So a lot of my works lists are just the size of the artwork, but now I have to have the size of the artwork and then the overall size of the frame and the charm. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it's something that people have been asking about and galleries ask about. So I include both now, which is a lot of extra work, but I guess I've made my bet on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've been thinking also about this like proof of life, you know, like a cave painting, you know, just the act of making art and putting it in the world is proof of life, but also you know, like your initials or the year. There's just something really interesting about the evidence of a person working. So I started adopting X's as kind of a generic way to think about you know, a signature or identity. And I'm almost done here. I'll just go through a couple more. There's a little paper chain on this one on the right. Yeah, this one feels like a theater curtain or something. This one, I think you can probably see the dimensionality of this. This one's about 1/2 inch deep, maybe a little deeper. This is a newer piece I finished quite recently. It's also quite large. And I think it kind of comes full circle with, you know, my interest in curtains, views, bricks, things like that. And I wanted to end on, I recently found out that I was a finalist for a really big prize here in Maryland called the Sondheim Art Prize. It's a $30,000 prize. And in July, I will have an exhibition at the Walters Art Museum. So I'm working on that right now. And, you know, if any of you are on the East Coast this summer, you can see my work in person there.
Wow.
Oh, and one more thing, I'll put this in the chat, but I run a website, as mentioned in the introduction, called Inertia. And I'm sure some of you experience this. You're in your studio or you're working and you're just, sometimes you get down and you think, you know, does this even matter? Why am I doing this? My work is terrible, or, you know, whatever the things are, the negative talk that we say to ourselves. Maybe some of you all have overcome that, but I know it's still something that comes into my mind when I'm working. So I started doing studio visits with a lot of other artists, and I interview them and transcribe the interviews and take photos in their studio. And it's been really helpful and comforting to me to kind of demystify what it means to be a person that lives in a society or a culture that's not really that supportive of a creative lifestyle, and what does it mean to sustain that, and you know, what does it mean to be an artist, because there are lots of different ways to live. So I'll put a link to this in the chat.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. That's amazing. And you are amazing. There's so many questions I'm sure everybody has, and it's just overwhelming. It's so fantastic.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I went long. I try so hard at, you know, teaching. I could just talk forever. So
There's a lot to tell us about, and we enjoyed every minute. So that's
thank you.
let's ask any questions that have come up. Who's in charge of this?
I think we pretty much answered the questions. There are lots of beautiful works and wow and that will all be available in the chat, which will be on the website, as well as a video of the whole meeting and a link to parts of it in the newsletter. So we'll all get a chance to reabsorb all of this.
Well, I think that sometimes that perhaps there might be an opportunity for you to maybe do a workshop or a demo for us sometime.
That would be wonderful. I did so many workshops actually on Zoom during the pandemic, and I've done workshops at Anderson Ranch, if any of you are familiar, and a few on the East Coast. But yes, that would be wonderful.
Well, we'll take it up in our board meeting and perhaps get in touch with you very soon.
Oh.
Is there any? Just thank you.
Thank you.
It's just been wonderful, and your work is just so amazing. The size alone is overwhelming. So.
Yeah, sometimes I make things and then I think, oh my gosh, now I need to move this, or now I need to store this. But that's I try to keep that out of my brain when I'm working. That's Amy's future problem.
Exactly. It's all of our problems with a studio with too many things in it.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Amy? Yes, Duania?
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Amy. It was a wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed very much. And I think your subject of work is very exciting about the symbols of power and everything. I think is, wow, amazing. Yeah, and I wanted to ask you in that matter if you have any book recommendations or any bibliography we can read, because the subject I think is amazing.
Oh my gosh, that is a great question, and I don't know off the top of my head, but let me think on it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm not in my studio right now, but I'm gonna write this down.
Super.
Or if you have recommendations, I would love to hear them too.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have one. I have one about
yeah, tell
domestic
me.
space. Yes, I don't know the name by my right now, but it's about domestic space
Okay.
and how is the use of the domestic space in the 19th century in England. And I
Ooh.
think it's very interesting also because I'm also interested about the use of space and how much space a woman is allowed to take and
Mhm.
how architecture also plans with that in mind. So that's why I was excited about this. So I can totally send that book also to you.
Yes, please. That would be wonderful. And I'm gonna think on this. And if any of you use Instagram, I use Instagram a lot more than Facebook, but feel free to message me.
Super. Yes.
Yeah.
A DM. I found you in Instagram, so I will write a
Okay.
DM there. And
Okay.
also I have a couple of questions. The Sondheim exhibition, what is it? Is in August?
What did you say? What is it or where is
The
it?
Sondheim or the one
Yeah.
you were finalist?
Yeah.
When will the exhibit be up?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
It's quite soon. I installed the exhibition in July, and then I find out if I am the winner in August. Um,
Ah.
there's 3 finalists.
So I
Yeah,
can stop by. Where is it?
it's in the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore, Maryland.
Vale.
Yes.
Super. I
But
will
I
write
think,
this now.
yeah, I think it will be online. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
told. And
Yeah.
the Inertia studio visit, do you do also online studio visits or only physical?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I started during the pandemic doing online, and I was not that excited
Yeah,
about it. I thought it
can
wouldn't
imagine.
yeah, but actually it was quite nice to connect with people that I wouldn't otherwise, have access to, and it was a really nice time in some ways during the pandemic because it kind of leveled the playing field. So I am now open to virtual studio
Cool.
visits, and I have done them
Super.
myself. Yeah, people
Yeah,
sometimes ask to schedule them with me. Of course, I think in person is ideal, but
yeah.
yeah, I'm open to it. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful presentation. Very exciting. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again. Anybody else have comments or anything they'd like to talk to Amy about? Okay, well, Amy, all I can say is thank you so much. And you're very much appreciated by this group. And I hope that we will be in touch for other opportunities to hear from you. So very well.
Thank you again. It was really my pleasure. I'm very grateful that you all wanted to have me.
A lot of acclaim here, a lot of clapping and applause for you. So we're going to go on then. I hate leaving Amy, but it's so exciting. But we're going to go on now. And Suzanne, if there's any members that are new that are here would like to talk about I don't know if we do have anyone. Do we, Suzanne?
Our new members, our latest ones are not here. I could not find them, so they will see it on the recording and hopefully they'll put their photo and a piece of work in our new directory. One of the things that Patrice and I forgot to mention, which is very important, is volunteers. Since we have continued to grow, during COVID, we became an international group. It's just been amazing. All of the out-of-state members we have now, and international members. I mean, we've got Dunya here with us, and we have Canadians. It's just amazing. But before I go further, Amy, it was just incredible. Every moment was scintillating. So thank you so much. So I'm going to turn this over to Patrice because she actually developed our volunteer. It's on our website. You can be anywhere to be on the board. You can be anywhere to help us out. So Patrice, would you like to say a few words?
I always would like saying words, but as it relates, yes. So I keep saying this every time that I'm a newer member. It will have been a year, but I still consider myself new relative to our founding group and relative to CAA overall. Volunteering, is not demanding. In fact, I find that it has enhanced my involvement and my personal relationships with some of the other members, especially the board members, because we speak often, sometimes more often than not. And that was also the impetus for further developing the directory, and that I don't believe that members need to wait for an official event, an exhibit or a meeting to contact one another, but it hasn't been as easy as it could be. And so again, that was the reason for the directory, hoping that we can encourage you all to interact with one another and ask questions and learn from one another. So as a volunteer, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be dubbed a chair. It just means that there might be one area of collage artists that you're interested in, sponsors, pardon me, I'm drawing a blank, membership or editor, helping with Kuei Lin, or historian or graphics. There are different areas. And I'm sorry, Barbara, thank you for waving. Barbara, who has been our website mistress for so very long, is desperate. That's a very extreme word, but she's desperate to find an heir and is willing to work with somebody to bring them on board and then eventually step down and dub that person the new web mistress. So we are all looking for help, and in some cases replacements, so that we can continue to thrive and grow as our membership gets bigger, and the talent the talent is overwhelming. And one thing, again, myself as an example, I worked very independently and privately, and without even realizing that collage had so many different factors. And now to hear Amy say that, collage is getting the credit and the recognition that it deserves in the art world is very exciting. So I think that basically we need you and we want you, and don't hesitate to reach out. There is a form on the website that you can click on to see the different categories and who is the current chair of that particular category. And so that may give you a little more information, but email, telephone call, whatever, reach out, and we're happy to welcome you into that fold.
We
Thanks.
have a great board, and a lot of fun and hard workers, and laugh and have a great camaraderie. So anybody that joins the board will be very lucky. Okay, then I guess for one last thing, we should have Kuei Lin tout her wonderful newsletter that she puts together. And then, before that, I'd like to, sorry, Kuei Lin, because I'll forget if I don't say it now. Is there anybody that has some special news about what's going on with them in their art and their life? Anybody in a special exhibit or anything you want to share? Quiet out
Well,
there.
I will share something. Both Sylvia and I are artists at Gloria Delson Contemporary Arts Gallery, downtown Los Angeles. And I was in a show there last month and actually sold a piece, which was great. And the show is continuing for me. So I have the piece that you see behind me is a digital photo collage that I do a lot of. So I have a floral display at Gloria Delson Contemporary Arts Gallery, downtown LA.
And there's a reception tomorrow night.
Yes, there is. So I can't come to the Reseda Rising because of that, but my heart is there.
Okay, anybody else have any announcements? Okay,
It looks like Toby, you had your hand up.
Toby? And if you have something, Toby, unmute yourself.
Hi, I just wanted to mention that I teach collage at the Calabasas Senior Center, if anyone's interested. I already did one class. It's a class of, there's 8 classes. And if you're interested, go to the Calabasas Senior Center and you can get more information.
Oh, good. That's fun. Good for you. Anybody else have any announcements? All right. Oh, yes, Dunia.
I'm going to finish, but I have an exhibition in Munich now in a window from the city of Munich, and it's going to be there 2 weeks more. But it's very nice. It's just it says open 24 hours because it's a window in the city center, and the city of Munich just uses the spaces, the empty spaces, to offer it to artists in the area to show their work.
Oh, good. Why don't you take a picture or two and send it to Toilet for the newsletter?
Yeah, I will. Absolutely,
you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have anything exciting to tell us? Okay, SP.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you. Let's see, my nephew is getting married in September in Italy, and I've been in contact with a gallery in Milan, Gelmoni. I don't know why, it just was the luck of the draw. And I asked him if they're, that I'm going to be there. They have a group show, and I submitted work, and I'm going to be in a show at the same time. Those 3 weeks it's September. Just to know, reach out. You never know.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, congratulations. Yes.
Congratulations. That's lovely. Anybody else? Anybody else have good news? Okay. All right then, Quaylin.
Okay. Well, I think most of you are pretty familiar with the newsletter because we didn't have that many people here today, but I will just say for the next newsletter, please send me stuff like news or even just images. We don't need to have you attach it to a show or some official accomplishment or anything. Just quaylin111@aol.com, and the address is in the chat, or it's in the newsletter, because it's nice to have new material. This is a pretty busy news month though, because there's 3 events. There's the World Collage Day, there's this event, and then there's the one tomorrow at Reseda Rising. And so, I'll have quite a lot this month. Next month, maybe not so much though. So feel free to contribute. And of course, I'll call attention to our Collage Artists of America Facebook page, because it's got all kinds of wonderful things that get posted every day. It's really amazing quality of work. And you just go on Facebook and join up with Collage Artists of America. 13,000 members. So, that's cool. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Quaylin. And so anybody else have anything that's they'd like to talk about or say? Then we will officially close the meeting, and but we can remain on and chit chat if you like. So how do I officially end the meeting? That's it. Barbara.
Okay, I will stop recording now. And